Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Evolved Man Masterclass. Today, I'm super excited to have with me a very special guest, Paul Marwood. Welcome, Paul.
Welcome, Ben. Thank you very much for interviewing me, and welcome, audience.
All right. So you are a certified advanced Akashic records reader and an international speaker and trainer in spirituality, energy, medicine, healing, transformational soul, and life guidance. And you also work closely with your wife, and you guys are co-founders of the 4 multidimensional transformational process, a new energy modality to help you move with greater alignment with your inner guidance and assist you to fulfill your life purpose and desire with expanded consciousness and ease. No big deal. Sounds like a pretty cool job description.
It's pretty awesome. I have to say, life's exciting.
All right, cool. So I want to hop right in. You've got a fantastic superhero origin story. So you weren't always into this healing work. So tell us a little bit about your story.
Sure. I mean, essentially, I used to be an engineer. I mean, obviously, I'm still qualified as an engineer. I used to be left-brained. I had my own engineering company. I was a control system engineer. We got to travel around the world building really cool control systems to automate offshore oil and gas platforms and mines, gold mines, coal mines, etc. But then the universe had a different plan for me, and my soul had a different plan for me. Obviously, that piece was a training to help me now. But essentially, I was parked on the side of a road, and a car hit me at sort of 60 miles an hour or 100 kilometers an hour.
Right.
Should have killed me. I happened to be wearing a 4-point racing harness at the time, and my seat in the car, driver's seat in the car, was, subsequent to the accident, this wide. So I'm not very good at getting that big. When the paramedics arrived, I was walking around relatively unharmed outside the vehicle. And you and I both know you don't just pop out of racing harnesses. Right. So something happened on that day that wasn't my exit point, if one might call those sorts of things, if you subscribe to such things. It created what one might call a Kundalini awakening in me, which really rocked my world, because in my world at that point, I thought psychic people smoked too much pot and should really go and get a real job, go and build something, as an engineer would say. Suddenly, I ended up having experiences on the other side, so to speak, talking to non-physicals, having astral traveling, etc., experiencing past lives. Which freaked me out. It happened fairly quickly for me, over literally 3 months or so. A lady came into my life who has experienced all this, and her job was actually as a guide. And so again, the universe was in support of me, helped me go through this. So my logical mind, my engineering mind, she would say, this is probably what's going to happen next. And sure enough, within a week or two, that would start happening. Okay. So I could rationalize that process a little bit more, instead of literally checking myself into a lunatic asylum, because some of the stuff can get a bit crazy.
Right.
So that's kind of where it's been. And since then, it's just been this almost right angle turn, selling my engineering company and now moving to this spiritual life, which is, really profound, really wonderful. I know with every single cell of my being that this is exactly what I'm meant to do. It fills me up, so, the universe and my soul have conspired. They've brought the turn, now I'm doing what I'm meant to be doing. Not that I wasn't before, but it's created a huge shift. I almost see both sides of the coin now. So I can look at the logical side and see the, what someone might look at, and also see the other side as well. So I can provide almost a clearer picture, because I can look at it from both sides.
All right. I want to dig into that a little bit deeper later, but want to ask a question of, when you think about what happened at a literal level or a scientific level, do you have any explanation that grounds what happened to you in any sort of science or not, in terms of that transition?
I think even science recognizes, and there was actually a proper name for the symbol, and the name escapes me just at the moment in time. My brain works better with images than words. Right. The medical symbol of the almost a serpent going up a central column. Essentially, the Kundalini energy is something we all have at our base of our spine. It gets activated to certain levels with certain people at certain times. Right. It's known. It's a documented fact And really what the end result of what tends to happen, for each of us, it's a little unique in the journey. But we start to have what one might call a spiritual awakening. We start to become aware of more things, and as far as, grounding it in a scientific realm, it's not, if you look at people that do Kundalini yoga, the yoga is based on trying to raise that Kundalini energy. And the net result of that is you gain so much more clarity. You really become what one might say a more whole being, but I'm not saying that as a judgment to anyone else. We're all perfect exactly where we are on our journey. But it's very powerful in that it helps. It's almost like you access more information. So at any given moment, I can access more information than I could do before.
Right. So essentially, you're a more open channel than you were before.
Yes. I communicate with my guides. I communicate with high dimensional beings. So I have a source there which one could use as additional library, a greater level of wisdom. I do read books, but very few and very slowly. Most of my information comes this way, and yet it educates me in a much more profound way, but isn't really what I would say before airy-fairy. It relates to our real world right here and now.
So you're telling me you've got a spiritual Google in your head?
Almost.
Awesome. I wish I had that. Is there anything, you mentioned Kundalini yoga, for us that probably don't have that spiritual access outside of Kundalini yoga to help open up? Or is that, I'm just wondering how that works if someone is trying to gain that level of access.
No, that's a great question, Ben. The truth of the matter is we're all spiritual beings. We're all capable of essentially this, similar levels of things. There aren't the better or the not so good type people. I honestly believe for all of us, because we're all spiritual beings, we benefit by having some sort of spiritual practice that's aligned with who we are. It can be different things. It could be meditation. It could be doing some form of yoga. I have honestly found myself to have a consistency with that, ideally on a daily basis, whether you start your day, end your day. For me, I start my day because it raises my vibration, and I tend to, and my wife and I have actually joked, and we've done sort of tests on this, where we've done it and our days have been much better. And when we haven't done it over, for a week or two, you get the good and the bad coming in a whole lot more. So that regular spiritual practice that someone can do, whether it's meditation, whether it's doing some form of yoga, helps us, because as our lives get busier and busier, we're doing so many things at any moment in time. We're mostly in our mind and we're busy. But the spiritual piece is about us literally being. So we just still for a moment. We can allow the more subtle wisdom of our higher self. We tend to talk about my higher self, or you get a download from our higher self, or we get intuition, which is guidance from our higher self. We all get it.
Right.
And that piece, when you're still for that moment, doing meditation, doing yoga, etc., really helps that quiet inner voice to come through, and you suddenly have inspiration or get a download or have knowingness about something. Could be a work problem, could be a medical problem, could be just inspiration about what am I going to do next, or should I talk to this person or should I talk to that person? It's all there for you, and I encourage people to use that.
Yeah. I mean, I know with my personal experience, I meditate regularly in the morning, and my goal is to access my intuition more. It's not screaming at me yet, and maybe it's not even whispering, or maybe it is, and I just hear it in a different way. But I definitely, to your point, notice the days that I don't do it, I'm more irritable and I'm more short and feel less at peace. And the days that I do it, I'm more calm and flow more throughout the day. So to that end, I think it benefits me a lot. But I'm not getting all those messages loud and clear. Alternatively, though, what I will say is I'm beginning to experience that access more. Just did a cool exercise with one of my previous guests. imagining, your highest version of yourself, and, asking them and putting yourself in that body and seeing what it feels like and trying to access that, and, actually felt the energy shift there. So I can kind of speak to that as an exercise that actually, felt that movement and gave me some of that voice.
I love it. That's perfect, Ben. And also, too, to tell the truth, even in my place, the messages are very quiet. They're very subtle. And for, the guys out there and the audience out there, most of us kind of expect the messages to come through like you and I are talking, loud and clear. There's no room for misinterpretation. It's generally not true. You kind of just have this knowingness. And most of us say, well, I already know that. So we tend to discount it. But the truth of the matter is it's all there for all of us. You're getting it. You're getting it, and it's just a case of trusting. The trust helps build that bridge to that greater knowingness. And it's as we trust those little subtle messages a little more, it becomes clearer, and we get to trust know what's happening. And that exercise that you did earlier is absolutely perfect, because putting yourself into that space shifts your energy to that space, being your highest and best self.
Yeah, it's a cool practice. So let's talk a little bit more about how your life has shifted since you've moved into this space. I mean, you mentioned being calmer, having more of a knowingness. What else? How else has your life changed?
I think really, firstly, I've really now at this point in time, I appreciate every moment. I walk outside and I appreciate everything around me. I'm appreciating having the gift to be able to speak to you today. I'm clearer in my life purpose, whatever that purpose happens to be for each of us, but I'm clear in my life purpose, what my end goals are, and I'm able to tap into this knowingness, intuition to help guide me at each step of the day towards that end goal. In our world, it takes a little while sometimes to manifest where we want to get, but at least one step, we climb Mount Kilimanjaro or Mount Everest one step at a time. So we always tend to be stepping in the right direction. Sometimes when you feel at odds with yourself, you can be stepping in the wrong direction, so to speak, or not quite as an ideal. So, that's helped me an awful lot. I also really, I'm at this new knowingness. Take responsibility for all of the decisions that I make in my life. Literally life happens to, instead of having the philosophy of life happening to me, especially if we have challenges or problems, life is happening for me. My soul has got my back. The universe has got my back. Things are happening. I'm manifesting things, good and sometimes bad, but the bad things tend to be a situation that helps us grow. You and I both know when we're put under pressure, in some way, shape or form, that's when we tend to put the effort in to make the change. So,
right.
Sometimes we get those challenges, and but I'm at a place now where when I'm in that space, I can say, okay, well, what is it that I need to learn from this situation? How can I be my highest and best? And how can I learn from this? Because if I don't, I keep finding that I keep repeating the same mistake, the same things keep coming up, the same annoyances keep coming up. And it's them coming up to just help me finally get it, and when I do get it, then it doesn't happen anymore, and I move along more unencumbered, so to speak.
Right. So, in other words, when challenges arise, you can take a step back and ask yourself, okay, what's my lesson here? Instead of just kind of gritting your teeth and going straight into it, you can see, okay, let me be a little bit more strategic about this so I don't repeat that same thing last time.
Yeah. And similarly with my relationship, for example, with my lovely wife, my philosophy of relationships now has changed so much. I used to see my previous marriage, my wife was my other half or my better half. I would look at having someone else to complete me. But
right.
Now I know that it's for me to find the completeness within myself. And my lovely wife is literally the icing on the cake. And then when she upsets me, annoys me, whatever it may be, she's simply a reflection of something that already exists within me that I need to address. So, instead of being annoyed with her because she's upset me, I actually almost literally thank her and say, okay, well, and then I go back to what I said before. What can I do? What can I learn from this? What is being triggered within me to be able to shift so that, and when I do that and get the answers, when she does the same thing a second time or a third time, it doesn't have that same level of intensity of the emotions.
Right. So just to reflect back what you're saying, look at your triggers in other people as where you need to grow.
Yeah. The outside world is a reflection of the inside.
All right. So I want to shift gears a little bit to what is the Akashic records? What does all that mean? And how can I get access to this library?
No worries. Ooh, delving into the esoteric, spiritual. Okay. So for those of you in the audience and yourself, Ben, if you subscribe to the fact that we have multiple lifetimes, okay, so the soul, that which animates us, gives us breath, and when it leaves our physical body, we stop breathing and that body then deteriorates. That piece of consciousness is infinite. It's immortal. It'll go up to the higher realms, and we'll choose another lifetime down, say on our planet here, and in born again. And we have experiences here in this lifetime. Where the Akasha or Akashic records are, the Akasha is a field that connects everything, and it's the subtle field that all information is stored and imprinted upon. So you and I have Akashic records in a simplified form. You and I have Akashic records. So we can, when we access these Akashic records, we can start to access information about the wisdom of our soul over all of its ages. So, you and I learn stuff as we go through lives. Right. But then when we start our next life, we kind of, in the past, have been wiped. So we start afresh again. But why not have this cool thing where you can start to tap into the wisdom of your soul, where you've done and been other things, and you can start to tap into that wisdom. And so many of us have patterns in this lifetime, for example, or every lifetime, but say this lifetime to simplify, which we're not aware of, in the sense that, like, why do I always attract this type of woman? Or why is it that I'm afraid of water? If I'll take this as a simplified scenario, why am I afraid of water?
Right.
So there's no reason in this lifetime that I would be afraid of water. It's just a fluid, so what? But maybe in 2 or 3 earlier lifetimes, I've had traumatic deaths due to water. Say I was a submariner and the submarine was torpedoed and I had a horrific death underwater, drowning and blah, 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 all that stuff happened. The intensity of that event can sometimes carry through time, because our soul is still the same soul going through. So in that piece, I'm terrified of water because there's some level of memory at the unconscious, subconscious level of that terror with water. So it has that impact on us. I don't know why I'm afraid of water, but somehow I am. So going into your records, you understand what that event was. And then there's some piece, and this is the piece that I can't explain. Generally, when you're accessing your records and you bring that stuff forward, you understand it at the brain, mental level, but then something shifts within us where, because it's now in the conscious, the unconscious can't control us anymore in that way. And so therefore we go, okay, well, I'm not really afraid of water anymore. We start to wade into the water, and then we may start to swim. And I was a perfect example of that. I didn't put my face anywhere near water until I was 7, and I was still terrified of water. Okay. Now I've got my open water diver's license, so I can go into caves and all sorts of things underwater. It doesn't worry me.
And was that submariner story true to you?
Yes, three horrific deaths due to water. Yes.
So what's the universe doing to you? Keep making you drown in water? That doesn't sound really cool, the universe.
No, you're right. It doesn't. But the interesting perspective with this, though, is that, when you think about, if you take a step back for a moment, we step out of our humanness. So you and I in our human body, we're pretty happy with where we are now. We don't want to die. We don't want to get hurt, etc. Okay. But when you think about it from the perspective of your soul, if you do subscribe to multiple lifetimes, your soul is here to learn lessons, to grow. Okay. And so these experiences are experiences that help us grow. We gain wisdom in the moment. It could be compassion. It could be survival. It could be love. It could
Don't get into the submarine.
And submarine. Yeah. Well, okay. That kind of limits it a bit, doesn't it? But the truth of that matter is, for example, is it's simply an experience that took place. You know, it's where I was on my journey. I took these choices, and this is where it led me to. And then I experienced death in a traumatic way underwater. So it's an experience, almost like, you know, the library. You said to me earlier, how do I access this library? It's like that's just another book in the library. So traumatic death due to a submarine, you know, bam, that's a book in the library. And so, but do I need to have that book bothering me in this lifetime? No. I want to have it so I can access it if I ever want to, but, you know, I don't want it controlling me now. So that's why the advantage is you can tap into, open up that book and go, oh, cool, that's nice. But as soon as you do, it seems to bring it to our conscious. And because it's no longer in our subconscious, it doesn't control us in a way that it could before. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I mean, and what I'm wondering about, and they may be related, is, you know, oftentimes when we talk about personal healing work, we talk about addressing wounds from childhood and that programming there. So I'm guessing there's maybe some of that is new in childhood and some of that is repetition of some previous lives. I'm wondering, when we're doing that healing work, those two things are probably related.
You are absolutely spot on. They are related. I mean, some things of how you and I act and interact now are due to our childhood in this lifetime, and some of the things are due to, say, for example, earlier lifetimes. So, yeah. And, you know, there tends to be a mix of both. You know, yes, the childhood is a very big piece, but also past lifetimes can be a big piece. I think for me, and this is a biased comment, so, you know, I understand with the audience this is biased. If you go to a really good psychiatrist or psychologist, they've got incredible tools, but they're dealing with your psyche and they're dealing with your book in this lifetime. Right. If you have some problem or some challenge that's outside of this, they simply don't have the tools. So you could spend 10 years going to see a psychiatrist or a psychologist solving your problem with fear of water, and you may never solve that. But you can solve it literally in an hour with an Akashic record reading. You know, so this is the kind of interesting things that happen. Talking about another practical example. Can I give you another practical example?
Please.
Last couple of months, this happened to me just very recently, so it's fresh off, hot off the press. I was getting a lot of headaches. Headaches are not a normal part of my life. And most of us, we've all had headaches. We get headaches. Okay, so my health and my activity was deteriorating slightly because I was getting these regular headaches.
Right.
Considering I'm an Akashic Records reader, it didn't even occur to me. A friend said, well, how many times have you been beheaded? And I instantly, as soon as she said it, I knew the answer. This is kind of sort of what happens now, 17 times. So she said, how many of those are you still holding on to? And I said, 16. So the next morning I went into my Akashic Records, spent a little over an hour in my Akashic Records going through this. And when you're in, you can learn, understand, experience, information comes forward as it's meant to in this really supportive, loving arena.
Right.
And in that process, I was able to not only understand what happened, but primarily forgive myself for what happened in those scenarios, seek forgiveness from my wives and children and family that I left behind in those times that had to struggle because I wasn't there. And then most importantly, forgive those that beheaded me. Now, the interesting thing is I've been going to see a chiropractor as well to help me with this.
Right.
She got it almost better, but it then started coming back again. So it's like we got it to 80% better and it was getting worse again. As soon as I did my Akashic record reading, instantly, my neck was fine, no headaches since. And when I went to go and see her about 3 or 4 days later, she said literally it's sort of 90%. Your neck here is 90% fixed. You know, there's still some other things she's working on.
Right.
So, you know, this is an interesting thing.
And let me just ask you, just to make sure I heard it correctly, 16 out of 17 times you were beheaded?
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
How does that repeatedly happen to a soul?
You know, again, it's interesting. This is where it kind of stretches our mind a little bit. And believe me, as an engineer, my mind since has been stretched many times. And I really don't blame the audience for going, oh, this guy's full of shit. You know, because if I was in your shoes or in my engineering days, I'd probably say the same thing. when we've had many, 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 many lifetimes, you know,
Right.
hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of lifetimes, you know, being beheaded 16 or 17 times is actually a very small number in the grand scheme of things. And sometimes we choose particular patterns or experiences in a more consistent manner. As a soul, we quite often get born back into the same family. There's some peace in that, you know, so there's a repeatability in that scenario. So if we've had many, many lifetimes, it's very feasible that one could have one's head chopped off, you know, many times. I wouldn't advise it to anybody. It's not a really cool thing, but part of the experience.
So with your intuition, could you like see anything about my past lives?
Okay, this is the cool thing. So the interesting thing about intuition is you take a moment and you can then usually start to read people, you know. So, okay, good question. So let's just try it and find out. Okay. When I go into the Akashic records, I'll just be a little bit revealing with the audience here in the process. We've been taught a pathway prayer process, and it's a prayer that's said, it's a non-denominational prayer that's said, and the wording and the energy and the intent in that prayer is what gets me into, say, your records, and I can only get in with your permission. It's permission-based, so I can't just snoop other people's records, so to speak.
Okay.
And then information comes forward. Obviously, for our interview today, that would take too long. So let me just tune into your intuition and just see what I get. See, this is the interesting thing. How do you prove anything? You know, is this guy full of shit, or is he just saying cool things? You know, how do you prove it? You know, because as an engineer, I'm getting downloads, but there's no way I can prove it. So
I'll have to take the leap of faith with this one.
Yeah, let's do it. I love doing things like that. Okay, so what images have been shown to me at this point in time? Okay, so this is a past life. It doesn't always have to be past lives. I'm seeing you out in the forest. You're actually an archer. Quite often information makes no sense to me, but might make more sense to you. Okay. It's almost like a William Tell type scenario I'm seeing. So you have been, you're a family man in that as well. You have a wife, you have 3 children. You are living a very athletic life. So, you know, there's that's what's been shown to me at this point in time. Generally, just jumping back to an earlier scenario, people would ask me in a particular Akashic record reading, for example, a problem or something that they need some help with. So in this scenario here, I'm just tuning in to say, you know, what's best to be shown to me in this moment in time for yourself? Right. Okay, so the other thing that they're showing me in this piece is many lifetimes for yourself that are related to this greater level of love with your family. So this close connection with your family. So that may or may not relate to you here and now. Remember, in time, these comments can be quite general, but what happens is those are a pattern. So in earlier lifetimes, what's been shown to me is this really great love between you and your wife and your children. So in many lifetimes, that's not going to be the case for all of them. And someone will say, well, that happens for all of us if you're a cynic, you know. And that's true. But as I say, in the moment, what tends to happen in a proper reading is the information will come forward. And quite often it's stuff you already know that I have no idea that I would know. And does that make sense to you in this connection now with this greater loving? Are you in this piece in time in your journey building a deeper and deeper love with your wife, and then the children are about to come along, which then will open that even more?
Yeah, I mean, you know, we're expecting our first child soon, and you know, I could see that as a lesson to be learned with my greater family, as an area to work on.
Now, this is an interesting thing that you've just touched on. As an evolving soul, we quite often choose to come in with the opposite. So you would choose to come into a family with less love so that you can see the contrast, because in this physical realm, we see the contrast. That's what it's designed for. So we quite often come in, I'm not saying this is your scenario, but as a soul, we quite often choose less love so that we can experience that ourselves, and we choose to embody more love. That is the real growth if you think about it. You know, it's like you would come in with not having it, and then growing to have it, then you understand the whole perspective and the whole shift, but you're also more powerful in that piece because it's harder to take it away. Easy come, easy go. You came in with love. You can be loving, but it can be sort of, people can influence you and you can be less loving very quickly. Whereas if you come in without love, you know what it means. So you're going to be a dedicated dad to be really loving for your children, because you've seen, for example, a difference. I'm not saying that that's your situation, but it's that piece. So we quite often come in with literally the opposite.
Interesting. All right. My mind or my intuition is crunching on that a little bit right now. So taking a step back then, it seems like a very human way to think about our evolution as lessons to learn over time with our spirit. And maybe this is a human thing to think about, what's the end game? And it seems like a convenient human way to look at our experience. And I like it as a philosophy, but what's the universe's end game? Just to have us learn lessons? It seems kind of strange.
That is great. And wow, I'll try and give you this most grounded answer because I can go in all sorts of places with this. If you subscribe that we've had multiple lifetimes, the soul is fairly infinite.
I was an archer. That sounds cool.
Yeah. So, and you never know. In the next couple of days, you may start having dreams about, some of that stuff. When it gets brought up, some of that information came forward to you. Anyway, if you think about it, if you're the soul, which is the primary focus of all of this, you're a piece of source, okay? So your whole focus of your soul is to grow. And the earth in this third/4 dimensional realm is a great realm to learn because it's so dense, it's so intense, and we have so much contrast of good, bad, happy, sad, mad, glad, etc. But we also have free will. So all these little pieces have been put together in this creation, okay? Because if you imagine source can create anything at once. So here's this creation. You and I on this planet Earth,
right?
We're in dense form, and the emotions and what's happening around us is fairly intense. So then we can experience what we like and what we don't like. I don't like being torpedoed in a submarine, but I do like tearing around the forest, shooting things with my bow, so we suddenly get clear on what we're more vibrationally aligned with. But beyond that, the soul is always expanding and growing, just like everything in the universe and consciousness itself. So these little lessons are essentially almost like you and I, when we read a book, we read a passage, we gain some knowledge out of that passage to help us in a particular way. So it's helping us learn to be more loving, helping us learn to be more compassionate, helping us learn to be able to see the other person's point of view. It might be, we might do something to help somebody else, more forgiving. So there's these many facets of ourselves that we can expand upon, and this earth plane helps us expand upon that. So we have these lessons, these experiences that help us. I'll give you a sort of a fairly expanded example, well, not expanded, intense example. We might have a partner, and the partner is suddenly gravely ill. They might get cancer or something like that. Then you, as the husband, for example, the other person, you suddenly have to shift you and your life to be very much in support of this person. You have to help them. You have to hold them up, literally, as they go through their struggles. You're the rock suddenly. So you have to become a better man than you were yesterday, because you're now the rock that's not only supporting yourself, but supporting her as well. So this takes you to a new level of who you are, so that experience, while you and I see it as not necessarily ideal or anything we would ever, at our conscious level, choose to have.
Right.
The truth of the matter is, if the soul had agreed beforehand this lifetime to learn a greater level of self-worth, compassion, love, then this situation of needing to support your partner, who's literally hanging by a thread, you've got to hold it all together. And so that takes you to that next level. So as a soul, you grow.
So I feel like my soul's at university right now, taking on different bodies as its different classes, trying to learn its lessons, and then it goes on to the next one, basically on what you're saying. And then does it graduate or does it stay in university?
I think we stay in university until we've like highest octave, 12th dimension, and we return back to source. But the cool thing is it's not all about hard work. You know, the whole thing is actually to enjoy the journey. This is where sometimes us as men, as humans, we've kind of lost the plot a little bit, because we're meant to enjoy the journey. We're meant to love and savor every little piece. And so, you know, for me, even when I'm in my challenging times, they're not as bad and they're not as long as they used to be, because when it happens, I go, what can I learn from this? What is this that I can learn to apply for me, for my highest and best? And suddenly that information comes through. And so then I quickly move through that challenge. And then I can move on again from a better perspective, because when I start to get the inklings that I'm going to go back to that place, I know that doesn't work for me. So I make different decisions. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, and
so you're meant to enjoy the journey.
If you look at that from the believer or the skeptical point of view, that perspective can be used either way as a useful frame about how to approach things.
Like I say to my clients, you're standing in front of two doors. One door says happy, one door says sad. Which door would you choose?
We go with happy.
Yeah. So why is it that there's moments that you and I are sad? It's like, duh, why am I choosing sad? You know, so this is where we start to take a step back. Instead of continuing spiraling down in the sad, it's like, okay, I'm sad. I'm starting to go into that spiral. Okay, we'll put the brakes on. Take a step back, take a deep breath. What is it that I can do or learn that's happening here? And this is where, as I say, the Akashic records, these other things that have been taught to us, like, you know, the universal sphere and the soul activations, help us so that we don't spiral down. We can stop at that edge, so to speak, as we're starting to experience it, and then take a step back, take a breath, go, okay, what is it that I can learn? And then we go, no, and you step out of the sad door and you step back into the happy door. You know, because the journey is meant to be great. We're meant to enjoy it. We're not meant to be suffering. You know, we can still learn stuff while we're happy.
All right. And let's just say the Akashic healing helps you unblock things. Mm-hmm. Then if that's the case, what if I spent like 2 weeks with an Akashic healer, or a month? Does it give you those gains, or is it a kind of no, your soul gets lessons as it gets lessons and you can't supercharge that?
Honestly, with the clients that I have, it does supercharge it. It does move you forward much more quickly. You release things much more quickly. A lot of it depends on where we're at in our journey. You know, if we have a lot of questions about certain things or particular problems in a challenging time, the Akashic records are really great in being able to help give you answers on those problems. And then you can move forward in new ways with a greater wisdom from your soul. It's like having your great grandfather with you all the time, tapping you on the shoulder saying, hey, Ben, you know, I know this is where you're going, but I've done that before myself, you know, and I reckon if you do this is going to work for you a lot better. So that's essentially what's happening with the Akashic records. So yeah, people can really accelerate their lives. They move, instead of being caught, say, in a relationship that they're unhappy in, and they're spiraling down, being unhappy with themselves, and then therefore health challenges start to come in, and the whole thing gets worse. You can help with this wisdom from their own soul, which is aligned with them. Right. And then it shifts them back onto being and choosing and doing what's right for them. And that may sound selfish, but the truth of the matter is that you and I, it's not for me to change you. It's for you to change you, and it's for me to change me. So my responsibility is for myself. So if I can help bring wisdom to my clients, for example, and they can apply that if they choose to, some choose not to, but those that choose to apply it, suddenly their life takes this great turn, because, and there could be an upsetting piece in there. If it's to do with the relationship, it might mean a splitting of the relationship. And I'm not one to ever propose relationships ever splitting, because I've been through that myself. Right. But you'll be fine when you're aligned with something that works for you. Your life is so much better. It comes back to the happiness. I choose the happy door. Why would I want to keep choosing the sad door? You know, so this is where the Akashic records can help and can supercharge and make it a lot quicker. Yes.
All right. I think that's a nice segue into the universal sphere group experience. So tell us a little bit about that. And I know you've got a gift related to that today.
Cool. Thanks, Ben. I mean, my wife and I, we live this a little bit unusual life. We essentially channel information from the higher realms, and they teach us things that help that every man like you and I to be able to very easily shift our consciousness, shift our thoughts, shift kind of our perspective of who we are, so that we can be in this more centered, peaceful, balanced place and allow ourselves to receive that information. So the universal sphere is one of these things. It's essentially what I would call, again, remember I'm biased, I would call this one of the next generation in modalities. So the reason why I say that is, firstly, you can learn it really quickly in 5 hours instead of months and years, which is the more traditional model.
Right.
You can apply it to just about anything. So it's not just for healing. You can use it for healing situations, relationships, you name it. People, animals, property, land, businesses. So you can use it for your business. You can even use it to make good things even better. So, and you can do it in, literally 5 to 7 minutes. So this is the cool thing. I'd love to be able to do a universal sphere, group universal sphere for your audience. The advantage of this is that because this exists outside of our 3D realm, it works fine as a replay, so you can listen to it at any time, and it's just as equally as effective as what it is here and now, even though we're doing something that one might call sort of vibration or energy, because everything is energy or vibration.
Right.
And so it works just as well then. Without putting too many words in people's minds, because I don't want to put anything in your mind, most people, when you're receiving a universal sphere, just simply feel very calm and relaxed. It's because what's happening in the moment is you're being more closely connected to your higher self. So, and then why wouldn't your higher self be calm and relaxed? It sees the bigger picture. It's the wise man, so to speak. So,
right.
So if you're happy with that, I'll do it here right now for the audience. There'll be a few moments of silence just to give everyone a heads up. We're still on video, so we're still there. So what I'm encouraging now with the audience, I'll guide you through some of these pieces. I won't be telling you how to do the universal sphere, but what I will do is help you just relax. So all I'm encouraging you is to just relax.
All right.
So let's get yourself in a nice relaxed position. You, Ben, and the audience. Let's take a couple of deep breaths in and out, because the breath will just help us move to a place of this more subtle feeling. So take a deep breath in. As you breathe in, draw some beautiful bright light into yourself. Let's just say pick white light for today. White light coming in, allow it to go around you. You are primarily a light being anyway, so this is more natural to you. And as you breathe out, any busyness of the day, just let it go out with your out breath and just get smaller and smaller and smaller. Take another deep breath in, bring more beautiful bright light into yourself. Allow this light to come in and just fill you up, literally, so you feel more expansive. You might feel lighter, and it's okay if you don't. Just bring it in, and as you breathe out, gain that busyness of the mind, the questions, just let them just go out, smaller, smaller. Take another beautiful deep breath in, draw even more light into yourself, and just feel this, start to feel this expansive feeling that you may feel. And as you breathe out, just bring your attention down to the place of your heart. Allow your heart now to be the place of where your focus is, your decisions, the mind. Bring the mind down to the heart, so to speak. Move to this place of feeling, okay? And from this place, I'm going to start doing a universal sphere, okay? The universal sphere is essentially a microcosm of the universe. And what it's doing is it's helping you connect to your higher self, connect to your universal self. And the cool thing is while I'm doing this here, separate from everyone else, because we would tend to look at this as separate, we are actually all connected. This is the cool thing. You will start to feel the shift happening. So I'm just going to be quiet for a few moments, and I'll mention a few things as we're going. But so you don't have my voice bouncing at you all the time, just to help you feel the shift. So check in with yourself now. How are you starting to feel now? And then I'll encourage you to check in a few minutes' time and see how you feel then.
All right. I mean, I feel a shift, and I can, feel more expansiveness.
Beautiful. Okay, well, keep going with this and we'll see how it feels in another 3 or 4 minutes' time. So from this space where Ben and you, the audience, just simply be, ideally have your eyes closed, just be in this place of openness. It's when we are open, when we're allowing, we can allow these things to come in. The mind and the ego may go, hey, what's going on here? But just be in that openness, just be in that place of allowing. Think of this as a sort of a cool experiment. See what happens. And from this space, in your stillness, in your being, allow yourself, allow your energy to just expand a little bit. It may make sense or it may not make sense, and that's cool either way. Literally like a balloon, just imagine yourself just simply becoming more brighter, luminescent. You may even feel that those boundaries of your body don't quite feel so defined anymore. Everything starts to become a little blurry. As you still remain connected to the place of your heart, allow yourself to be connected to your heart. Allow your heart to be and give you feelings. This is also the channel on how you get your intuition. You may have noticed your breathing has become more calm, more settled, more regular. The universal sphere, the vibration or the energy of it is, as it was taught to us, the perfect universal resonance, which is the perfection of all that is. And if you think about it, as you're resting in this vibration of perfection, why wouldn't you feel more perfect? It's like you said earlier, Ben, connecting to your higher self, your perfect self.
Yeah, my ego says get back to the interview, but the other part of me is like, no, enjoy this. This is nice.
That's exactly right. So take a gentle deep breath in and allow yourself to slowly come back to where you are in the room. And take another deep breath in and allow yourself to come back into your body. And just slowly open your eyes and check in with yourself. How do you feel now compared to literally how we were 5-7 minutes ago?
I can feel the vibration. And it was interesting to me that my head was so far tilted back when I opened my eyes. I was like, whoa, I didn't think I got that far back. And yeah, definitely things seem to kind of get brighter and more vibration.
The cool thing about literally learning how to do this, and one might say it seems very similar to traditional meditation. It isn't, by the way, but the interesting thing about this is in learning how to do it is really empowering for people like you and I, because when we get frustrated, when we get annoyed, we can simply do a universal sphere in 4 or 5 minutes and shift ourselves back to the way we feel right now, this calm centeredness. And from that place, we're clearer in getting, what do I need to do right now? What's the right thing to say? What action is the best action? So we're starting to then align with your higher self. And so as we do that more, we really do embody our higher self more, and life becomes so much better because we're not really at the whim of our emotions and our anger and our frustration. Instead, we're now starting to feel it, but then observe and then make different choices than we would have before. Instead of spiraling down, we can say, okay, got it. I know what you're saying is upsetting me, but what's within me to change with regards to that? So suddenly we move now in a more flow, literally like the water flows down a river.
Right.
The water doesn't see a rock and go, there's a rock in the way. The water just flows, gets to the rock and flows around the rock. So you and I, as we embody this more, we have situations, experiences, and we take it in more because when you and I are angry, we tend to become fairly narrow-minded. But as we can hold the space, we can still experience it, but we can be more aware of what's happening around, and we flow around the situation.
Yeah, I can flow, let you carry the interview, and I can just chill.
No worries.
All right, cool. Well, I think it's an excellent place to land the plane. I hope we didn't lose too many people during that exercise, but I think what I'll also do is do an edit of it, so those of you that were in the gym or operating a motor vehicle can get back to this when you've got the time and space to do it.
Indeed.
Anything else before we wrap up that you think is good for the evolved man to know?
I think in all honesty, for most of us, we are our own worst judges of ourselves. So you and I tend to be the worst critics. I encourage you guys out there, really to start to be less judgmental of yourself. Catch yourself in those situations. Remember, you and I are always doing the best we can in the moment with the information that we have at this moment in time. Sometimes we can, as they say, 20/20 vision in hindsight, but we've learned more. We know more, later on, so therefore we can look back and judge ourselves. But, the truth is we're always doing the best we can in the moment. And as we start to adopt that more, we really can lighten up a little bit, and in that lightening up, see, when we're judging ourselves, all we're doing is really, you can feel it. You feel more compressed. You feel unhappy. You feel less. But
right.
When you're on fire and you're doing things and you're fired up and you're in the mode, your mojo's flying, whatever the case may be, everything's coming together beautifully. So, the less we can be judgmental and the more we can be encouraging of ourselves, then we step more and more and choose that happy door more and more. And it really helps us, helps our lives, helps our wives, helps our careers. It ripples out into so many things. So that's what I'd like to share with the audience.
All right. So it's a beautiful way to wrap it up. So thank you so much, Paul. Really, really appreciate it. And you're a good sport for the what I view myself as the on the line in terms of this belief, non-belief. But after that practice, I'm gonna get in touch with the universe more and see what it tells me.
I love it. Do it. Bring it on, I say.
All right. Well, great connecting with you, and look forward to connecting again soon.